At NeighborWorks, we're going from mowing to growing in our own yard. We believe that gardens make neighborhoods more sustainable and more connected. They provide places where residents can grow their own food, as well as connect neighbors together around a shared activity. Today, we're going to be digging up some of our own yard and showing you how easy it is to get started gardening. But before we dig into the soil, we're going to want to check with Nebraska 811 to make sure there's no utility lines or internet or anything buried underneath the area we're going to dig. We've done that, and so we've marked the area from aloe there, so we are good to get going. You have to wait until all the different utilities check in to make sure that your space is clear. Once that's done, we're going to take the spade, and you're going to want to use some sort of sharp edge, kind of flat spade. And this will be good for cutting across the grass or sod, and then it's kind of a firm, kind of swift kick to the top, like that, and you'll dig down and around. You want to do this all around the perimeter of that grassy area. So after you've got the rest of the perimeter finished, you want to start with a corner, and you'll want to just take that shovel, that spade, get underneath the corner. You can see how I'm just kind of working it underneath the bottom of that sod there. I'll take out this flag too. You can kind of see it's staying intact because it's got a root system there. And then hopefully we can just get this all out as one large chunk. Once I've started to make that initial cut, and I've cut around the outside perimeter, it's really just a matter of rolling the sod back. So now this is pretty thick, so it'll take some work and some time, but you can just kind of roll it back like a wet carpet. Now if you get stuck at any point, is just come around to the other side, take the spade, and do the same thing again. Just kind of lever it underneath the sod, cutting into it, and getting that separation from the roots of the sod and the soil. If your grass or your sod isn't rolling like this, it could be the fact that you just grew grass from seed or had some other option for grass, and really, that's okay. You know, if you need to do it like that, it might just break into smaller chunks, and you'll just be able to take those chunks of grass out. Now, if you have a knife like she's using, or if you have a sod cutter, you could always use that to accomplish the same purpose. We're just doing it with tools that you're likely to have in your own backyard to keep this low cost as possible. So doing this work for the first time is a little bit of a full body workout. You really have to dig hard to get through that sod and cut it into pieces. But once you've done it, you're left with kind of a flat, probably compacted bed of soil. Now this doesn't look like your top-notch gardening topsoil that you'd buy at the store. You just need to put a little bit of work into it so that it's ready to plant. Now I've got two different types of shovel here. I've got one is more a traditional shovel with a head attached to a wood stick, and then I have a shovel over here which is a solid piece. Both will work fine, but this is really top-notch here, and especially when digging into hard compacted soil, this type of shovel will be sure to hold up to dealing with that hard clay. So I'm going to take the shovel end, and really it's as simple as just starting to dig. You want to go about a foot down to get that undersoil broken up. Now if you were to just try to plant at the soil as is without breaking it up, what would happen is your plant roots wouldn't go very deep. They'd essentially hit a hard wall of compacted soil at the bottom, and they wouldn't be able to get planted very firmly. They probably could not have the structural integrity to continue to grow. You're going to want to try to break this soil up as much as possible. When you're digging, you're likely to find pieces of cement or just old limestone, or really any type of brick underneath the soil, especially if you're in an older part of the city. That's totally fine. Just take that piece and take it out of your garden. You don't really need that, and you'll save your shovel if you do so. So this tool here, this is a broad fork. You can see it has kind of these long, few feet long tines, kind of like a construction digger. This is a really useful tool for tilling the soil after you've taken a shovel through it for the first time. Rather than using a rototiller, which is okay but may shred some of your soil matter, this keeps it into smaller chunks and breaks up those large, hard to break chunks. So you'll basically just stick it in the soil and use your body weight to wiggle it in, just like you would with a big shovel. And what you can do is you just lean back on it and turn over your soil. So what you get is this hard kind of compacted clay. Keep digging and running through a spade through it so that you break up these large chunks into smaller pieces. Just like a cooking show, we've kind of pre-prepared this bed a little bit. We've already broken it down. So you can kind of see, again, it's still not the potting soil you'd buy from a store, but it's not those big chunks we were looking at earlier. It's these smaller particles and small kind of clay clumps around the bed here. So this is okay to plant with. This is not the best soil in the world, but year after year of taking care of it and covering it upright, and this will become really high quality soil. So first we're gonna take this sod that we cut up earlier, and even if it's in smaller chunks, that's okay. But this is in one roll, so we're just gonna roll it back over the top of the bed here. And to get plants ready, what we'll do is we'll just take a standard garden trowel and just kind of dig through the root system to create a place where we can put our plants. What putting the sod back onto the spaded bed does, it has this organic material, the grass itself, that'll be dying and then it'll start to decay, and it'll just add more natural organic matter back into the soil, which will help improve the soil's health and help to break up some of those big chunks of soil. To kind of cut around the area, making a hole about this big. So we've got some green bell peppers. We'll start with those. And this has a pretty small seedling, so we'll actually add some of the soil back around. And again, just try to compact that so the root system is in nice and sturdy. So we've got some squash in one of our beds now, and we're going to take some of this straw we bought. Now you can use grass clippings, you can use just other plant material waste, and you kind of use that as just a covering for the base of the plants and kind of get it so that soil immediately underneath the plant is covered. And what this will do is it'll add additional plant material back into the soil, as well as help to keep that soil moist. And retaining moisture is what helps clay soils from compacting and from turning into solid bowls of clay. Now there is a way you could potentially overdo this if you added too much and blocked the leaves from getting light. We don't want straw on top of the leaves, we want the leaves exposed to light, but we want it covering as much of the soil and the roots as possible. It's also good if you're looking to build an area where the soil continues to improve in health and quality over the years. You're gonna want to take some of that covering and just put it on top of that rest of that overturned grass. Again, that's gonna have that same effect of retaining moisture in the soil, so that maybe if you wanted to plant something else here next year, like green beans or something that you could plant in rows across, you still have good moist soil in the middle that hasn't been left to dry out. The most important thing, though, to making sure that this garden bed stays healthy and productive is really what you do after you get your harvest. So when your plants are done growing, when they've produced their tomatoes or cucumbers or peppers, you could even take the plants themselves and cut them down and lay them back onto the garden bed to use as more covering for the fall. Even better would be during the fall season, digging up those plants and replanting something else. So you could do spinach, you could do carrots. There's a lot of different other crops that you can do during the fall season. And then even if you wanted to plant later in the season after your fall crops and do a cover crop, that would help maintain soil health and integrity long term. So with these kind of steps in mind, getting more organic material onto your bed is the main priority. Keeping your bed covered is the second main priority. Not letting moisture and exposure happen to that soil. And with those two main things in mind, in a few years, you'll have some really top-notch quality gardening soil that you didn't even have to pay for right in your own yard.